Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. We've got 3 cards to talk about, including the new My Songs collection for Mamimi and Chiyoko, as well as the Produce SSR for Sakuya. Let's go ahead and start with Sakuya first. She's a mixed unit between visual and vocal. Both of her appeals have an initial hit, so a visual 3 or vocal 4.5, then have a follow-up hit that's scale based on how much mental that you're missing. So if we click on this one, it'll show us a visual 1. So if you're at full health, it only does 0.2. If you're down to 1 health, it does 1. So it scales linearly. It's not amazing, but it is something. Also notably, the appeals grant memory gauge. The visual appeal gives you 10%, while the vocal appeal gives you 20%. The plus appeal on both of these is a 70% or 90% reduction towards interest for 1 turn. But it requires you to be running the full Antika lineup, and you have to be between 65% and 69% HP. So it is a very strict requirement to get the buff, but it is something that is available. For the passives, she has notably a 2-star passive of a vocal visual 75% if your mental is 74% or lower, which has a 20% chance to activate twice. Her 4-star passive is a vocal 85% if you have the full Antika lineup. This has a 20% chance to activate once. Her memory appeal is a vocal 2.0 that goes into a maximum vocal 3.0 that scales based on how low your mental is. Sakuya is okay. Most Antika players are looking at this card right now as kind of a side grade to Promessa Sakuya, aka Sakuya 4, who has been struggling as of recently. The passives for this card are fine and are really the big highlight for the character in general. The problem with their appeals is that they just don't have enough oomph in them. While it's not exactly just about, oh, the damage isn't really that high, the problem is that a lot of the Antika appeals that are used right now, so Kawaii Hito, Mermaid, so on and so forth, just have better effects for Antika overall than something like this. While the memory gauge boosting is certainly appreciated, it's not enough to really tip the scales in the favor of using this Sakuya's appeals over anything else. I'm going to go ahead and give this Sakuya a B, maybe a B+, because of the passives, but not really in the A range. She's a really interesting pickup for vocal Antika, sort of, and I don't know what exactly she's going to accomplish in visual Antika, but at least the option is there. On to Myquile, starting with Mamimi. So Mamimi is a pure visual unit. Her appeals are actually pretty okay. It's a visual 3.5 that ignores interest and reverses interest for 2 turns. Then you have the visual 5.0 that ignores interest, actually adds 30% interest up for 2 turns, and applies interest reverse for 1 turn. So there are some slightly different applications as to how you would use these appeals. There is some semblance of, we understand what we're trying to do with Mamimi being a trickster character, so we're going to create some levels of stall tactics with her. For her passives, well actually, before we get to that, of course, the plus appeals, you have to have below 49% mental, and have the full Antika lineup to have a visual 2.0 that ignores interest. It's okay. For the passives, she has a visual 85% up if your mental is 4,500 or higher, but your current mental is below, or rather above, 75%. So, to reiterate, you need a maximum health bar of 4,500 or more, but your current health needs to be above 75% for the visual 85% buff. This has a 20% chance to activate twice. Her visual 130% passive is the reverse. You need a maximum mental of 4,500, but your current mental needs to be 74% or lower to be activated. This also has a 20% chance to activate twice. Her memory appeal, when maxed out, is a visual 2.0 that ignores interest, that follows up with a visual 3.0 that ignores interest. Mamimi is actually pretty solid. She has some ideas for an early or late game Antika visual build. Her memory is a little on the weaker end, all things considered. 5.0 does feel fairly low for a 5-member unit, especially for a team that does not have a lot of access to duet like the other 5-member unit. It's also just kind of too soon to really talk about Visual Antica because, unlike the other two builds, Visual Antica has never really been that relevant in the game's history. So, this is really the first real shot that Visual Antica is trying to make. So, we're just going to have to see how the team pans out in the future. So, I say that maybe she feels like an A unit, maybe B+. It's hard to say. I definitely do not think that this card is bad. She just doesn't have a very reliable home yet. So it's going to take a lot more pieces of Visual Antica to really make this card shine. Now lastly then, we have Chiyoko. So Chiyoko is another piece of Vocal Hokuda support. Her appeals are a Vocal 4.0 or Vocal 5.5, which are notably strong for being single target. They both grant 100% attention for 4 turns, and duet randomly with Hokuda. The plus appeals are just a simple Vocal 1.0 as long as it's turn 4 or later and you have the full Hokuda lineup. I still don't get why they're making their plus appeals this lackluster, but it is what it is. Her appeals themselves are strong at face value, but the attention buff is a little weird. We'll get into that in a moment. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 75% up if you have an attention buff, so that's where the attention comes in, at least for her. This is a 25% chance to activate twice. And her 4-star passive is a Vocal 130% up if you have at least 4 characters in the skill history. So really the application is to use this 130% passive to make Twiquile Rinzé stronger. For her memory appeal, it's a Vocal 60% buff for 5 turns that links into a Vocal 4.5 appeal to all judges. Chiyoko is strange. Hokuda has been moving away from attention up, only to fall back to it in this case. We saw that with Maikole Jury, and we saw that with Twiquile Rinzé, where attention up is not really their plan, and neither is interest. It's just, let's work on skill history stuff, let's work on duet, let's just go from there. This card feels like we're going backwards, and in a lot of ways, I feel like this card was maybe built before Twiquile Rinzé, and hadn't finalized it until the card was already out. Which I think maybe would have been better to see this card first and then Rinzé later, but who knows, the schedules are kind of messy anyway. Her passives are a notable upgrade from Chiyoko 5, which is really the main card people are comparing this one to. Because that card had a 70% passive and a 100% passive versus the 75% and 130% respectively. The problem is that I don't think that the appeals that this Chiyoko brings are that much better than Chiyoko 5. I think the setup with interest up is a little more useful for Vocal Hokuda still. So we're just going to have to see how that plays out for the card. I think that this is sort of a side grade for Vocal Hokuda. It's not mandatory in comparison to Rinzé or Jury, however you look at that. So she is an okay pickup overall. Card is cute, of course. I would say that this card is maybe a B+, not quite the A range. I feel like there's just something missing from this card to really make her feel that much stronger and maybe worthwhile to that regard. So we're just going to have to see. That will do it for the video today. Sorry for this one being a little off the cuff. It is late as of the time of this recording, much later than I usually try to record. As for the next shiny review, it's probably going to have to come in real fast. We have no idea what's coming up next, and I actually have to disappear a little later next week as of the time of this recording. And so if anything happens after Wednesday, I won't be able to handle it until the following Tuesday. So I'll try to have the shiny review for whatever banner comes next out by Wednesday at the latest. And if it doesn't happen, then look forward to a community post for it. So, till the next video, I've been Cho. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.